Dude, get off your phone. Put your phone down.
Not just gonna retire. Whitey, big fan of the show. Appreciate Brian Murphy to my left, making sure everything's crispy, buttery. James Harden is systematically ruining the game of basketball. The most overrated player. And there you are, the Chicago Bears with a champion season. And I'm sure dancing with the stars is happy to have Antonio back. If you thought you were going to get Zion, that's your bad. Now listening to Open Season, your host, Billy.
Good evening. Welcome to Open Season. I'm your host, Billy Allen. We got Frank Bradica, as always, on as well. Big week in the NFL, Week 9, and we're talking about the Patriots who put a beat down on the Colts. The Bengals, can they turn things around? The Jets upset the Bills. Seemed like they found a way to slow down Josh Allen. The Titans stopped the Chiefs as good as they could. The Chiefs pulled something out the last minute. The Bucks, did they save their season with a vintage comeback from Tom Brady? Luka Doncic has been absolutely just on fire. We'll be talking about him. He might lock up the MVP award in the next week or two. I mean, my God. He hasn't scored less than 30 points. Welcome to Open Season. We are starting out, though, with the story that, well, nobody seems to be happy about the Jeff Saturday signing. Him going to be the interim head coach of the Colts. And let's play, one of the famous clips that Jeff Saturday is known for.
We'll have some clashes at times.
We're playing the Rams on Monday night. We got down there pretty close to the end zone. Damn it! We threw the ball 3 times in a row and incomplete and had to kick a field goal.
We came off the field and we exchanged words of how we thought it should get done.
And Jeff comes off and says, we need to be running the ball down there. And I just snapped. Hey, we're calling the plays, all right?
We gotta run the ball.
Six down there. We'll run the ball.
Can we run it down there? We'll run it down.
Yeah, Jeff, we will. All right, when we call pass plays, look. I was totally outmatched, size, strength.
And there you have it. So there's just a clip showing Jeff Saturday going back and forth with it with Peyton Manning. So not afraid to challenge authority there, but a surprising head coaching move after the, on Monday, the other day, Jim Irsay, Chris Ballard, and bring in Jeff Saturday to be the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts, everybody is very confused about this because, Jeff Saturday hasn't even ever been, any type of coach anywhere, really doesn't have any experience with this. The Colts had a couple other coaching candidates in the wings. Frankie, as we bring you in, tell us a little bit about your thoughts on this story with Jeff Saturday, the well-accomplished coaching candidate sworn in to be the Colts head coach.
This, to me, is if the Red Sox had fired any of their managers and asked Remy to do it. And I want it to go well. I want desperately for this to go well. I think it would be a very nice thing to have former players not have to pay, some of their dues. If I played 20 years in the league and I've got the capacity to be a coach, I should not be going through the same thing that a Yale student who never made the league has to. So I want this to work. I have no faith it will. I just don't think there's a chance this goes well. And even Jeff seemed confused. And Jeff's very smart, very humble, very, very entertaining. I'm sure guys will want to play for him. But I don't know that this man can scheme anything up. So it becomes, how good is his coordinators?
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, you just look at a team that had pretty big expectations coming into the year. And now they just seem pretty far away from things. I mean, they have a really good defense. There's no doubt about that. I mean, they have a good defense. They're far away from having the quarterback that I think they're going to need to have to be serious contenders at all right now.
They had, coming into the season, what we thought was a good offensive line and a good defensive line. We thought they had a top 5 of each in the league. It turns out their defensive line isn't quite as good as we thought, even if their linebackers are every bit as good as we thought. but their offensive line is not winning the point of attack. You have Quentin Nelson. He's one of the highest paid offensive linemen in the league, and it's just not going well this year. If you have Jonathan Taylor and cannot run the ball with an all-pro guard, something has to be done. And in that respect, Jeff Saturday should be able to help that right away.
It's just funny that before Jeff Saturday even plays one game, Jim Irsay's got to defend this. He's fully capable. It's just so funny how the Colts just always seem to make these, whether it's hanging a banner for an AFC championship game or whatever the case is, it just seems like they are always, in the middle of interesting decisions when it comes to that. And, kind of always seem to be like a team that people are going to mock almost, or, have making a mockery of. But yeah, we'll see what Jeff Saturday can do over there. Going back to if we go to the Patriots, talking about the Colts staying on that, they come out with a, pretty convincing win, but it's really been in the midst of Mac Jones just not playing well. I think a lot of people are, will take the win. But if you look at it, Mac Jones really wasn't responsible for a whole lot. You looked at the defensive touchdowns and, just everything they were able to do. I just feel like, how are you evaluating Mac Jones right now? How capable he is, Frank? I mean, should they start to pull the plug on this guy? Is it just the learning curve that they've had him go through this year? Josh Dodd is saying that Nick Folk is the Patriots offensive MVP. And I agree. And you could probably say that's been the case for the last 3 years, honestly. But Frankie, tell me a little bit about, your thoughts.
This year, the offensive MVP, as funny as that was, is very clearly Ramondre Stevenson. We're a different team when he's locked and loaded. But that's always been the case. We are a good team when our offensive line is good. The worst we can be is mediocre when our offensive line is playing well, and it hasn't all year. It's been playing well. The defense is playing well. We're facing bad offenses. I have no faith that what's going to happen is we're going to get up against an elite quarterback, and this defense is going to hold up. I just don't see it. Don't believe it. We're a little bit faster on the defense this year. Not a ton. We're one of the slower defenses in the league for 10 years. Also, on Mac Jones, the guy has the highest paid tight end room and a top 5 pass-catching salaried team. I mean, he has Kendrick Bourne. He's got Al Galore. He's got a bunch of people making way too much money that can't help him right now. I think it'd be a more fair assessment or evaluation if he had weapons to throw the ball to, if he had coordinators that had ever coached offense.
Yeah. And I think the thing, though, for the Patriots, though, is over the last couple of weeks, it's been like 29 point. Josh is talking about how, Folk should be the MVP. He's had 29 points over the last 2 weeks, whereas the Pats offense has had just 12. So it's incredible that they just haven't really been able to muster up many points unless they get really favorable field position. And this is, going on. I just feel like the biggest thing that Mac Jones needed to do this year was just kind of the arrow needed to go up. I mean, it wasn't a thing where the Patriots needed to win a ton of games, but Mac Jones needed to take that step. And for them to not have made that step, I just feel like is a huge indictment on where they're at, because it's just like that was really the one thing that we all wanted to see. It was just Mac Jones had a really good rookie year, honestly, like 3,800 yards, 22 touchdowns. But he's really gone down this year.
Again, it's no surprise. We did nothing to help this man. We have to pay Myers. I don't understand why we're trying to use him like Debo. You less of that, please. That's not what he does well, and he's not that fast. No need. But I like that he's versatile, and I like that they're using him with option routes. Yeah,
they're going to set up a trick play coming with that. I think Myers used to be a quarterback.
Yep.
I feel like so eventually he's going to throw one of those if he can actually manage to handle it, unlike how he did in that Chicago game. That was a terrible mistake. Yeah, it's like, please do not show me any more of this.
Yeah, I'm good with that package. No, thank you. I just don't need it. Don't want it. How much are they going to pay him? Give him the same thing you gave Aguilar and get rid of Aguilar. He's after this season, he's been here 2 years. The majority of his guaranteed money is done. Get rid of him. We have a bunch of decisions to make this offseason because we have money tied up in people that aren't helping us win.
Yep. Now, if we go on to the Bengals, they had a pretty convincing win this weekend. Joe Mixon, 5 touchdowns. That first half was ridiculous. Then they put in Baker. Baker, scored a couple touchdowns in the second half, in garbage time and stuff. But, the Bengals with a pretty big win. Do you feel like they're going to turn things around? I think they were 4-4 last year at the same point and kind of got good in the second half. Do you think that they're on course to do the same thing this year, Frank?
I think that's how they do it. Let me rephrase that. The answer to the question directly is yes. If you're asking me, the answer is yes. I think they will. I think they've got an absolute stud at quarterback who's just balls through and through. Love Burrow. If they're going to turn it around, it's going to be throwing the damn ball. They still can't protect Joe Burrow, but they've got all these outside weapons. So you're going to need play action desperately to beat a good team. You're going to need to be able to pick up 3rd and short, 4th and short without having to drop back with Burrow if they're going to turn this around, or even if they're going to take the next step and win a game in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, God, if they can just keep up with what they were doing this week, I mean, Joe Mixon, and then, how long is Chase going to be out for?
Another 2 weeks at the earliest.
Yeah. So, I mean, if they can hold water until he gets back too, I mean, if they can figure out a way to survive without him, which I know they have done before,
they have Higgins. Like they've got Boyd still. They have 2 good receivers that aren't named Jamar Chase and an all-pro running back. They should be fine without Chase, obviously better with Chase.
Yeah, no, I mean, Chase is one of my favorite wideouts, really. It's crazy, but overnight become one of my favorite wideouts. I mean, he's so good.
They should have just put that LSU team together. Jefferson, Chase, and Burrow is like, that was going to work in the NFL. It was going to work at LSU. It was going to work underwater. Those 3 are that good at football.
Oh, my God. Yeah. So the Jets are, the toast of New York after this weekend, really. You got people over there saying Tyler Conklin was interviewed. He's saying, it's not the same old Jets. And, they're kind of pounding their chest a little bit, but they deservedly so. I mean, that's probably the win over the Bills. It seems like probably one of their biggest wins in the last at least 10 years or so, is at least since, Rex Ryan beating the Patriots in one of those playoff games. But crap, I forget where I was going with that.
That they're the toast of the town, that both New York teams, like we mentioned last week, are actually slaying it this year.
Yes. And so it seems like they were able to do something with slowing down Josh Allen is really where I was going. It was basically they were able to apply a lot of pressure, only rushing 4 passers. And I think that, or 4 only rushing 4 people. So that seemed to be a decent strategy. I don't know if a lot of teams are going to have the personnel that it takes, but it seems like they may have uncovered something there, Frank.
Unlike Patrick Mahomes, you don't discover something when you do this. What they did to Allen is what every team tried to do to the Patriots for 20 years. You need to get home with minimal rushers. You need to muck up the middle of the field. They did a great job with Josh Allen. They didn't really let him escape a whole lot, which is also very important. When you pass rush a scrambling quarterback, you need to be absolutely integral in your gap setting, in your lane choosing, in not rushing too far up the field, allowing a scrambling quarterback to step up and take off like a Lamar, like a Josh Allen can do. I think they didn't discover anything as much as they had the personnel to make it work. The defense, or the New York Jets, have a great defensive line. They've got a really, really good rookie corner. And I think if you've got a lockdown corner and 3 or 4 guys who can get to the quarterback, yes, you've discovered how to challenge the Bills or the Patriots or the Bucks for that matter. But not every team has that personnel.
Yeah. And I mean, their defense in the second half was just like absolutely incredible. They allowed 3 points and 63 yards in the second half. Before this game, the Bills were averaging 14.5 points in the second half and 215 yards per half. So it was basically like, they cut their numbers gave them basically a quarter of what they were able to come up with earlier this year. And so Josh Allen, in the second half, he was 5 of 12 for 42 yards. It was sacked 4 times. I mean, this is stuff that you haven't seen since Josh Allen's rookie year.
And again, I think there's a chance it happens more and more. It's just not against every team. Not every team can do this. And the Bills have a lot of weapons that should have been able to get open. And again, I think Robert Saleh, just to answer the caller's point, I think Robert Saleh is legit as a defensive coach, as a guy who can motivate a locker room. I don't think he's got the right quarterback, and I know he's not the guy to develop him. He's the right coach for not this team.
Yeah. And so this brings up something as well. The Jets defense. I don't know if you happen to hear Bill Belichick today was talking about how, the Jets defensive play callers kind of knew some of their signals. That defense is just incredible over there. And, it's amazing that they were like even calling out some of the plays.
It's weird that Bill would be offended by somebody knowing his play calls, seeing as how he built his career. Just a weird line to draw, but okay.
Yeah. I mean, how do these guys come on to, learning the play calls and stuff like that? Is it just like the tape or, you got
to see it and do it, right? So you have to read through the playbook at least a couple times before you get it. And then you need to call those plays.
Yeah.
You need to get used to hearing that verbiage, because if you went from West Coast to zone run, to power run, it's going to be different. They're going to be different calls. You know what I mean? One thing might mean, 15-yard out. One thing might mean a 9-yard go route. Same verbiage, different offensive systems. So I think it's more, once you've played football your whole life, it's more about figuring out what is the terminology for this one. You know what I mean? You already know all the coverages, all the schemes, all this. Just what do you call it here? What do you call this audible? What do you call that audible?
Yeah. No, but it's funny how the Jets just always seem to have a similar recipe for winning. It's always like they have these terrible offenses and then these otherworldly defenses. It seems to be the exact, and, Robert Saleh kind of reminds me, he's just a guy that, like you were saying, people is going to play for him. He's going to cook up a good defense, different guy than Rex Ryan, but that was something that you would say about Rex Ryan as well, basically. So I think it's funny that they haven't had this type of prowess over the last few years, but they're doing it with the exact same formula that Rex Ryan did.
I think there's a chance that if they don't, what are they right now? 5-3. I think there's a very good chance that if they don't get better, Robert Saleh loses his job. Like, if they continue this pace, they'll be fine. The arrow's trending up, right? But if they end the season and the arrow's still trending down, I doubt he keeps his job.
Yeah.
Also, since we have a break in the action, Sauce Gardner, freaking legit. Absolutely love that player. I love my wide receivers and corners with a lot of ego. That boy is legit. Stud.
Yeah, no, he is really good. He's honestly already locked up the defensive rookie of the year too, I feel like.
No question.
Yeah, their defense is so good. But I mean, do you think they could actually? They don't have the type of quarterback to make any type of noise this year, unfortunately.
I think
you're just watching that. It kind of feels like the way that McVay was like puppeting together Jared Goff earlier in his career. It's just like, can you please just not F up?
We're not talking about upside. Jared Goff is a better NFL arm than Zach Wilson. He might be even dumber and far less mobile, and he might not have a very high ceiling, but his NFL arm is better than Zach Wilson's NFL arm.
Yeah. I mean, do you think the Jets, do you feel like the Jets got lucky this weekend, or do you feel like, the injury to Allen played anything into it? I mean, what's your overall read? Like, do you take more from the Bills? Do you take more from the Jets?
No, I think I take away more from the Jets because I think they came in with a game plan, they executed, they won. I think they had that's very funny. I think it's not that surprising only because they have a coach who can really galvanize. As I already said, they came in like, we need to win. I think they came into this game with the same mentality they went into the Patriots game with, completely different result. So I think if they start doing this more and more, and as pro athletes, they see we are this good, we can be this good. Look, confidence goes a long way, especially in the NBA and the NFL.
Yeah. So moving on, one of the other big games this week was the Titans versus the Chiefs, a game that went to overtime. Chiefs came out on top in that one, 20-17. But definitely, not a whole lot of overtime games these days. And, pretty cool to see just Vrabel, kind of like matching wits there. This coach off, and I know you and I were talking before the show. You're a pretty big fan of what Vrabel's doing. May not have the best personnel over there. May have made a mistake getting rid of someone, but
really seems like getting rid of AJ Brown was the absolute wrong move, huh? Who knew when you have mediocre quarter play that having a giant unstoppable weapon is actually very important? Just came out of the blue. Nobody saw this coming. Nobody thought AJ Brown was going to be one of the best receivers in the league when they traded one of the best receivers in the league. But I don't want to bash the Titans. Titans came out and played an excellent game plan. They came out and played very well. They got this man to throw the ball 68 times. That's a recipe for a loss. And Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, so it didn't work out for the Bills, or it didn't work out for them. But look, the Chiefs are otherworldly, and here's two things I thought from that game. Man, Vrabel looks like he's having the time of his life. Some of those third down, fourth down calls when the camera panned to him, he's got hands on his knees. His whole upper body's in the field of play. The guy is locked in and laser focused. And then after they got one, I saw him laughing and exhale. No, this matching wits is so fun for him. What a heady, wonderful football player who became an excellent coach. I love watching him coach. I'm sure he has limitations. Most ex-players do. But Christ, watching him enjoy coaching makes me enjoy watching him coach. And that team is playing above their skis and have for a couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they just didn't have a great performance between the offense and defense. I mean, afterwards, there were some questions, I guess, if there was any type of divisions in the locker room. He said no to that, said that there was no talk of that. They have a pretty good plan to shut down the Chiefs, though. You feel like ultimately they just lose that game because you can't stifle Mahomes for the entire game, basically.
What they did was sell out. You're not going to give it to Kelsey. We're going to keep a too deep shell, and whatever you do, you do. So he just scrambled, and he didn't Lamar Jackson it, but he scrambled for a lot of first downs. He scrambled for a lot of to get to third or fourth and short. It seems like every time he ran was important. Not that he was getting huge chunk plays, except for I think he had a 25-yarder, which is just hilarious. He doesn't look fast, but then he gets to the second level and outruns people. Mahomes is a fascinating athlete because I don't think he's fast, but he plays much faster than whatever his 40 time is, and you just can't stop him.
I agree. He just has this incredible ability to like evade and scramble and then make the incredible throw. Like he's not the fastest guy, but it's like he avoids the hits and can make the throws. I don't know. He's like athletic enough to get to the spots where he needs to make these throws.
He's also got that baseball arm where he just sidearms it around people. Like he threw the ball 68 times, and if Kelsey didn't let it doink off his hands and face mask, he didn't throw a pick. Like his one pick on the night hit his receiver in the hands and in the face.
Yeah.
70 times and basically threw no pick. That's so hard to do in this league. He's very good. And here's what I was very excited about in watching the Chiefs. This feels like when the Broncos were doing that Osweiler-Peyton thing. And what I mean by that is they went from being super, super dominant with all these stars to, okay, some people have left in free agency. How do we piece it together? How do we get back there? And they won with just all brain and heart. And I just think this Chiefs team is learning that they don't have Tyrann Mathieu and Tyreek Hill. And they don't have all of this excessive amount of talent. And they're learning how to win different ways. Like this is a time in a dynasty, if it's not a dynasty, where it starts to regress back to the mean, right? That's what the 49ers are doing. That's not that they are a very good team with a very good defense, but their Super Bowl window is pretty much over that team.
Yeah.
To find out how to win games differently. It's fascinating. Now they still need to come out and run the ball 30 times in a game and have that be the reason they win. But their defense gets timely stops. Chris Jones disappeared for that entire first three quarters, then was lights out in the fourth quarter of that game. They still have just enough talent at the right places, but they're learning how to win different ways that aren't blowing people out, and you love to see that from the progression of a young quarterback.
Yeah. No, I feel like, Mahomes is like on pace to beat the NFL record for passing yards in a season. I mean, he's got like more touchdowns than anyone. I mean, it's just nuts what he's doing right now. And I feel like he doesn't even have his best wide. They don't even have great wideouts over there. So a lot of people thought that it was Tyreek Hill maybe making him better. I mean, people knew that he was skilled, but, maybe figured that was part of it. You figure Kelsey. I mean, Kelsey's 33. I mean, I feel like a lot of it is it's not like Kelsey's as physically dominant as someone like Gronk was, basically. I just feel like Mahomes is doing this right now without even having amazing weapons.
Because he's not Gronk doesn't mean he's not an amazing weapon. Like, okay, so he's not the best tight end of all time. He's the best tight end in the league going away.
No, he is the best tight end. I guess I'm just saying it's not like he's not amazing because he's like this crazy athlete. Like Mahomes kind of like throws the ball like in great spots for him and stuff like that too, like.
But
Mahomes,
Kelsey's got great body lean. Kelsey's a very, very good route runner, even though he doesn't have the fastest feet.
What I'm saying is that Kelsey doesn't help, like, basically make Mahomes from like a scrub to being amazing. Like yeah, exactly. Like, so that's all I'm saying. It's not like he has, Marvin Harrison and all that, where like, you're wondering if that's part of the equation at all. He's got guys that aren't even that great in there. Like Juju Smith-Schuster was pretty much let go from his last team. And, he's got like 50, 60 catches over there already. It feels like, he's got like 40 catches, I think.
Juju's playing well for them, and Juju's a receiver who, when he's not worried about social media, is still, he's a Pittsburgh kid. He was really good for that team in terms of he's low ego outside of wanting to be a child who has fun on TikTok, but he runs clean routes and he comes back to the ball. He plays like a physical receiver. And that's something that every good quarterback needs. And I talk about Malcolm Mitchell all the time. Like, for one game in a Super Bowl, you need a receiver who's going to come back to the ball, who's going to fight through contact. I like Juju for this team because he's the anti-Tyreek. He's not blowing away from anybody. But if you need a 3-yard in route, he's going to run it and get blown up. And he's going to hang on to it.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of like a Anquan Boldin-ish in some regards. Anquan Boldin was like amazing, but
Anquan was one of my favorite receivers of all time. So shout out
to
shout out to
he was a beast. He was like a running back in a wideout's body.
Yeah, he was Debo, just not quite as fast.
Yep. So somebody that is pretty fast, Justin Fields, who ran for 178 yards. And I feel like over the last 3 weekends, he's ran a whole lot more. It felt like, for some reason, there weren't a lot of design runs for him. And now you're seeing like 9, 10 of those a game for him. Running in 178 yards. God, I can't remember a quarterback doing something like that since Kaepernick was running absolutely wild in that Green Bay game in the playoffs years ago. But just feels like they might have found something. I just feel like they might have found something over there. You don't know. You just felt like beginning of the year that Justin Fields was completely outmatched. In the last few weeks, he's played really well as like a dual threat quarterback.
It's upsetting what happens when somebody doesn't go to the right spot, and it happens in sports all the time. Justin Fields needs to be throwing the ball. But if you let him come in the last 2 years and do what he's doing right now, the game would have been moving so much slower for him. Defenses would have been able to be so much less aggressive. Therefore, his ability to read plays would have been mitigated by the fact that he has time to learn because he's getting better protection. It doesn't make any sense that you wait 18 games or 20 games to decide, hey, we're going to let you do the thing you do best. You're a dual threat quarterback. And you weren't letting him be a dual threat for the first 20 games of his career. No doy he looked overmatched.
Yeah. Well, the Buccaneers, obviously, they were able to pull out a win this weekend. Brady obviously had a pretty vintage performance. The Rams, felt like they were up at the end of that game. And then, Brady kind of comes down, his nails, and ultimately they pull that out. Now they're not looking like amazing or anything like that, but if they lose that game, you feel like they're probably out of it for good. You think they're going to go on a run here at all in the second half? Do you think they're going to just lose again? Like, does that game do anything for them?
The Bucks they'll be fine. They'll be fine because their quarterback is that damn good. And they're going to get Leonard Fournette out of there because he's awful. He's awful. He's just too big, doesn't play well, can't block, just not great. Just Leonard Fournette hasn't been really, really good in years. He just was super productive last year playing for a high-octane offense. He's not that good. They'll be fine, and that come from behind victory. Broke a tie for Tom Brady. He has the most fourth-quarter comebacks in NFL history. He broke a tie with Peyton Manning. And so for everybody who says that Peyton Manning wasn't clutch, just completely not true. Completely not true. The man had 54 come from behind victories in the NFL.
I guess that probably is more than you would have. You don't think of Peyton Manning as like a comeback kid like that.
I just think he was so much worse than Brady that people started somehow to make him underrated. He went from being overrated to being underrated in the same like 10-year period, Peyton Manning. And it's kind of sad to see because he was unbelievable and people don't give him his respect. He wasn't Tom, but also nobody who's ever played has been Tom. So that shouldn't be considered his fault. The fact that he even made it an argument or a debate for 10 years is fascinating.
It's crazy that Tom is still just like his arm. I mean, his arm is like just as good right now. I feel like the reason why, he's not going crazy this year, I feel like is the offensive line, just hasn't been great for him. But it's like his arm is still completely there. It's like as live as it. I feel like his arm is like better still than it was at the end with the Patriots.
I think his arm has just been better for the last, call it 10 years of his career versus the first 12. I think he got better medicine, better everything, and more time to work on it. One thing I will say I've noticed about, because I don't like to talk about slippage unless I really see it. And I do think that most of his problems are offensive line related. For the best quarterback of all time, it's the first time in his career he does look less good in the pocket. He's
for sure
getting around him
there
down. He's not stepping up as much. He's not doing the Tom thing as much. He's basically just like, if you block for me, this is going to be net positive. If you don't, I'm going down. I'm just not taking the hit. That's a really negative way for me to phrase that. Yes, I think the Bucks are going to turn it around. And part of it is they're in the worst division of football. I'm pretty sure the Panthers lead their division.
Josh says avocado ice cream gives you 20 extra yards of arm strength.
As long as there's roids in it. Whatever Alex Guerrero is putting in, it's not legal. It's not real. Just like that concussion water. I do not believe whatever he's doing works, sure, but it's Chinese medicine. It's not FDA founded. It's not CDC founded. Some of these methods are just they're working. But I mean, at the end of his career, when it comes out that he did bucket full of roids or HGH, just like Peyton Manning, I won't be stunned.
Yeah. I got to tell you, one thing I've been stunned about has been the Raiders, their start and just the way that they performed. I felt like this was going to be a get-right game. If you were watching that game, Devontae Adams has like 88 yards, 6 catches, and a touchdown in the first quarter. He's got like 100-something and 2 touchdowns. They basically look like they're running away with that game, maybe a spot to be a get-right game. And it ends up being their third 17-point loss, game that they blew with a 17-point lead. So just a lot of trouble there for Josh McDaniels. And I mean, people keep mentioning that he could be out of there after a year, like before this is even happening. I was like, no way. Are you starting to think that there could be a chance that he would be out of there after 1 year?
I don't think Mark Davis makes decisions like that. He tends to fall in love with people he hires. But this looks very bad. This looks very bad. The idea that you have a good defensive line and a good offense in theory, and you're doing nothing on either side of the ball is really should be humbling. Like, it should be bad. Yeah,
I could not believe that game. It was like, I don't know. I mean, it just felt like, the Raiders were like going to destroy them. And it was just like, nope. Josh Dodd says Sean Payton, maybe. I don't think I just thought there was no chance. And I felt like people were going to be bought into McDaniels. It just seems like people already want to get rid of him.
That's the only way that I see McDaniels getting fired. If the Raiders can pull off what they tried to do 2 years ago and get Sean Payton and Tom Brady, I think that's the only way Tom plays another year. I think he's only playing it in Vegas or San Francisco. And I think if Sean Payton...
What about Miami's probably not going to try to get him.
Miami, you can't do it. Even if Tua's not the guy, you're just not going to get a quarterback with an available money scheme. Like, you can't pay all the people they pay and then have Tom come in for $30 million.
Oh, God, I want the 49ers to do it.
Me too. And I would hope that they keep Jimmy. I would hope that, much like Bill said in, I think, 15, we've got the best quarterback situation in the league. I think the 49ers would benefit from having Tom Brady, greatest quarterback of all time, greatest player of all time, with a solid best backup in the league in Jimmy Garoppolo. Excellent plan, if I do say so myself.
That is not going to happen. That is not going to happen. We'll see. But I mean, I don't even know what to say about the Josh McDaniels. I just felt like he was doing the right things this time around, hiring, what seemed to be like a smart staff, kind of letting people do their jobs, being more of himself and just not as much of like a dictator like Belichick. And it's just like none of it's working right now. Do you think they'll turn that situation? Do you think he'll turn this situation around? And you think there's any chance he finishes out his contract there?
No, but very few players and coaches reach the end of their contracts, especially in that league.
Yeah.
It looks so bad. And they've blown, you said what, 3 games, three leads of 17 or more?
Yeah, I guess in their history or something like that, they had blown 5 from like 1970 till now. This season, they've blown 3.
And it looks like it too. You can almost see it. And the Celtics had some of this, not to cross sports. But prior to last year, the Celtics, once they got up 25 and they were hot dogging and flopping around and yelling at the refs, you almost knew every time, oh, we're going to blow this. Even if we win the game, we're blowing this lead because we don't know how to handle prosperity. This Raiders team, when they're playing well, almost immediately, false start, holding, defensive pass interference, just they have no idea how to just be disciplined and win. They are not maximizing any of the talent on that team. And that's got to fall on the coach.
Yeah. I mean, to move on to the Seahawks, I mean, they just keep impressing me. I mean, you're talking about something where it needs to fall on the coach. One of the coaches that I thought was going to have an early exit this year was going to be Pete Carroll. I just truly didn't see the Seahawks winning much more than 1 or 2 games. It seemed like they had just gotten rid of Russell. We're going to completely tear things down. I was questioning why DK Metcalf would even sign there.
Money.
And they've just completely turned things around. They're light years ahead of their rebuild, 6-3. Geno Smith looks like a halfway decent quarterback. He looks better than anything the Patriots are trotting out there. So what do you think about, what's going on in Seattle?
I saw a graphic today that had Geno Smith with the 5th highest QBR in the league. I did not look at when weeks that was. It just seemed like fake. I didn't even want to.
He has the 3rd highest rating. I think that was like a stat that came out.
Yeah, it's wild. I'm completely disregarding these things, as I still don't believe in them. But as I said last week, I won't completely dive back into it. Excellent story. You have to root for that guy. I don't know how you don't root for Geno, because he was so unlikable and he's become such a different person and such a different teammate, and you have to reward that. You have to root for those types of comeback stories. It makes no sense that they're this good, and you missed the segue. It was from avocado ice cream to cocaine ice cream, because whenever Pete Carroll's on, a lot of coaches need to be on it. That guy is out there doing offensive line drills, is throwing the ball, playing gadget quarterback for the practice squad. I don't get it. The guy's still chewing his gum 1,000 miles a minute. He's one of the oldest coaches in the NFL.
He is the oldest coach. I think he may be one of the oldest people to ever coach. I think he's the oldest person to coach in the NFL.
Surely that's Vermeil. Or at least Dick Vermeil was the oldest looking person to ever coach.
That's a different record altogether. That's the Greg Oden Award.
That's so sad, because he looked 100 years old when he was like 16.
God, I know.
And he was so good. Why'd you do this to me, Billy? Don't bring up fallen stars with that much potential. I love me some Odin.
Oh, I thought it was no question that Odin was better than Durant.
I would have drafted Odin over Durant. I thought there was many questions. But I mean, the guy not that we should be talking about this, but the guy had just played an entire college season as a number one hand with the wrong hand, playing with the left hand. Like, what are we doing? That guy was so talented. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. But the Seahawks, I think they're fascinating. I do not think that they're real contenders, obviously. But when you have 2 straight really good draft classes and you get rid of your highest paid player, your rebuild usually takes a while. The fact that they're 6-3, I don't believe this is going to continue. I think they'll win 8 to 10 games, which is what I thought at the beginning of the season. So I do think they'll have a less profitable second half, but everything they're doing is working. I love to bring this up. Their O-line, their D-line, Billy. They're both.
You thought they were going to win 8 to 9 games, so this isn't even like that ahead of schedule for you. Then I guess
I didn't think that at the beginning of the year. I have adjusted. I thought they were going to win 4 games.
Yeah, I mean, Kenneth Walker, that guy is a walking muscle. That guy is so strong when he gets his legs going. It's like,
you know who he reminds me of?
Who?
Do you remember Doug Martin?
Yes, the muscle hamster.
Yes. He reminds me, when you said he's one big muscle, I'm like, yeah, just like Doug Martin. And I love Doug Martin too.
No, I mean, Kenneth Walker is so impressive. I feel like there's so many times by the goal line, like you just think he's like done or whatever. And I think I believe he's got like 6 touchdowns since week 5 or something like that. You know, it's just, he's come on really strong, and you're looking at the Seahawks as having the coach of the year, the comeback player of the year, the rookie of the year. Josh Dodd is talking about their draft. I mean, they took guys in like the 6th and 7th round that are contributing. They have an undrafted kid that's from around here that's contributing over there. So it's just the way that they're able to draft so well still, and how connected Pete is for this age. I mean, it really is remarkable.
I want to be fair, because I always talk about how coaches, everybody will go up and down in the draft. Pete's had a good 3-year run, and when he got to Seattle, he had a really, really good first 5 years of drafting. There was a dip in there. There was a dip where they kept drafting offensive linemen who couldn't play and safeties who couldn't play. Also, the Seahawks are doing this without one of the most overrated players, Jamal Adams. However, they'll still be better with him there, if that makes sense. I don't think he's as good as people think he is. He's better than their starter now. So that defense isn't even like playing at full throttle.
Yep. And so Kirk Cousins, I mean, the other team we have to talk about that's, ahead of expectations, or, yes, ahead of expectations is the Minnesota Vikings. They only have 1 loss right now, and they're probably going to, clinch that division well before Thanksgiving. Are we getting excited about the Vikings at all? Is there anything they can even really do as long as Kirk Cousins is their quarterback to excite us?
I got to be honest. I don't think it's Kirk Cousins that is the reason. I don't believe in them, but I don't think it's the quarterback. I think you can win a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins. I know I've never said that on this show, but if your team is ready to go, he won't be the reason you don't win if the rest of your team is ready for it.
I agree with
I don't
that.
think their defense is good enough. I don't think they get enough pressure on the quarterback. Definitely a fraud team. I don't believe in their secondary. I don't believe in anything they have besides one of the best running backs in the game and one of the best receivers in the game. And now they've got TJ Hawkinson. So they've got perimeter threats. That trade was huge for them.
Yeah. I feel like Hawkinson really wasn't too involved in that game, though, was he?
No, but he was on the team for 6 days.
Yeah.
You got to figure he really only
I
had.
I would have liked to see them look for him a little bit. I mean, I didn't really see him getting any looks. Like, everybody was talking about how he had just gotten over there. I'm like, come on, get him the ball.
You don't need to. Justin Jefferson is unguardable. And I love how different him and Chase are as like specimens. Like, Justin Jefferson clearly has more routes in his tree. He's clearly got like the faster feet. But they're both just so fun to watch. You just can't guard either one of them.
Did you see what he was wearing before the game? He had like those goggles on, like Justin Jefferson.
Big fan of anybody in goggles. James Worthy, Larry Bird, anybody that wears goggles for any amount of time is a hero to me.
Yeah, Rec Specs.
Yes, they're amazing. I just love them.
So yeah, if we go on to we go on to the NBA a little bit here, kind of get into basketball. We were talking about Cleveland a little bit. I mean, do you think this is Cleveland's best team since LeBron?
Without question. And more importantly, they finally have a team that's on the right side of the age spectrum. So yes, they're overperforming. They're also supposed to get much better. They've got young guys on that squad.
Yeah, they have truly built like a good team over there. I mean,
That's use Josh Allen still, huh? Or
Jarrett.
Jared Allen. That was one of the dumbest trades. I never understood it at the time. They could still use him. And they ended up going to get Claxton, who's the same guy, but worse.
Oh, I know. I know that was so poor.
Made no sense. Made no sense. And this team, I'm telling you, this Cleveland team, also, they're frauds for the record. But in the NBA, at least, when you arrive early, that lack of experience can be a good thing. It's almost never a good thing in the NFL. In the NBA, it can be a good thing. The fact that like Donovan Mitchell's only played for winning NBA teams. And a lot of these kids are so young that they only have college to fall back on. So none of them are a part of a losing culture. So if it's going to happen, if they're going to be really good, it starts now. And it's fun that they're starting the season in a way that gets us to talk about this.
Yeah, of course. They kind of did like anti-Brooklyn, where you just like sign 3 places at one, the players at once. You know, they've used the draft. They've kind of used all the avenues to acquire talent. They've acquired young talent.
And everybody wants to be there. Everybody who's there wants to be there. That's no small thing in this league.
Steph Curry had 47 last night, you know, kind of like a turn back the clock. I mean, he's been incredible, but I mean, just in a huge takeover performance for him. They've had a really tough start. Do you think they're just coasting through a November, like, you know, an NBA November, or do you think there's anything serious to worry about?
Both.
I guess I just mean, like, for the Warriors, are they just coasting right now? Is that why they haven't been great? Are they saving themselves?
The answer to the way you asked it the first time was yes, because it was yes on both sides of the question. This is what teams that have been there before sometimes do. LeBron teams, the Miami Heat did this. That mid 2000s Pistons team did this. The 09 Celtics team did this, nursing a bunch of injuries. Teams have done this. I just don't know it's going to work this time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, just the flipping the switch.
I don't know that their guys are healthy enough or in their primes enough to coast. Everybody besides Steph Curry should be playing their best game every game and should not be thinking we need to get to the playoffs. 2 people just got paid. They've got 3 guys on rookie contracts. Draymond's playing for a contract, and Clay's playing to prove people wrong. So the idea that they don't have a chip on their shoulder is a little disappointing. It's not yet time to start worrying, but this doesn't look like other championship teams coasting. Let's call a spade a spade. This has looked uninspired and almost anti-Warriors basketball. They've got the most open and fun-flowing game that we've seen in the NBA ever, and everything's been so hard for them this year.
Yeah, and a couple of guys that everyone talked about making a jump this year. People were talking about Jonathan Kuminga was a big weapon that they would have in their arsenal. You thought that the other center that they have would be good. I'm trying to think of
Wiseman or Moody. Well,
Wiseman. So do you why are these guys coming on a little bit slower? Kuminga is basically getting like no minutes over there. Is he gonna be what you think? Or
Kuminga is in a dangerous place where he's gonna end up being like Jeremy Grant or Sadiq Bey. He desperately needs to add some form of range to his game. You can't be only a slasher in today's NBA. And I think the reason he's getting no minutes is because his defense hasn't been great this year. That kid is a defensive stud usually, and he'll get back to that. Wiseman, I think, has some Robert Williams to him. Robert Williams was not good for the first several years of his career. Wasn't healthy for the first several years of his career. I think that's what they have to hope Wiseman in. He should be better offensively, but defensively, that's what you're looking at. You're looking at a pogo stick, and he's taller than Robert. James Wiseman is still full of talent. It's not looking good right now, but I'm not going to blow it up. I mean, he was injured all last year.
Oh, no, I'm not blowing it up. I'm just saying I feel like I was expecting a bit more of a boost. I feel like that's not to put everything for the Warriors on that, but I just thought they were going to get a bigger contribution from some of these guys that were younger that they had kind of been stashing for the last couple of years. They haven't really gotten that.
They haven't, and they're desperately going to need to.
Yeah, they're at the point where they're going to need an injection of youth. You know, they feel like Andrew Wiggins is a young guy on that team.
Andrew Wiggins, I was looking at this, has more career points than a lot of people better than him. Like, for a guy who's a bust, he's actually just been good his whole career.
Well, he plays 82 games a lot, right?
Yeah.
No. I mean, that is honestly, I respect the hell out of guys who play a lot of games because everybody plays 50 games now. So, yeah, I mean, that's one way to get ahead of a lot of these guys. Who was the biggest guy that surprised you that he's ahead of?
I wanted to write it down. I didn't. There was 2 names that actually floored me. The rest of them was just like, well, those guys miss games and what have you. But there was 2 names on that list that I like genuinely couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And I just don't. Also, the Suns, I know they weren't on our rundown, so I'm going to be quick about this. They look bad. I know they're like 7-3 or something. They look bad, and Chris Paul looks worse. They do not look like a team that is, destined to go back and make a deep playoff run.
Yeah, seriously. Chris Paul looks like a pumpkin that had like the expiration date of like 38 or whatever. It's crazy because he looked so young last year and he looks so old. It's like, he hit this age and I don't know. I honestly felt like he was looking younger like last year or something. And then he's kind of slowed down a little bit this year. But I mean, that's what happens
This is the second time in his career that he's gone somewhere and revived his career and touched the fountain of youth. But if he doesn't touch it this year, baby, this is going to look worse. It's the mid-range that is affecting him. He's missing that 16-foot butter shot off a pick. He's just not hitting that this year.
Gotta have the butter shot. Yeah.
Well, that's also, I mean, you look at the playoffs, that's what he was doing. Pick and roll. Oh, you don't want to immediately stop me? I'm going to shoot this free throw line extended jumper, and it's going to be net. It's going to be net because I'm an NBA player at 16 years. I've hit this shot 3,000 times in the NBA alone.
Yeah. So, let's talk a little bit about the Celtics. I mean, they win last night over Memphis, but they did everything they could to let that game drop away. Tatum had 39 points. And, they win by 3. I feel like Tatum has been super motivated this year. But their defense has been scary, quite frankly.
Yeah, their defense as a team has been awful. And Jaylen Brown, I feel like for 2 years has just become – he's more and more aggressive on defense, but he's no longer as good at staying in front of people. And it's really frustrating because he's got all of that in a bag of chips defensively. Jason Tatum has been good defensively.
Yeah, Jason Tatum is making a step defensively for sure.
He has been a better distributor. His shot selection's been better. He's right up about 50%, 30 points a game. If Luka and Giannis were not doing Luka and Giannis things, we'd be talking about, is this the first year that Jason Tatum gets an MVP vote?
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think that, Jaylen Brown has not been the number 2 that we need him to be so far this year, I feel like. But Tatum has really been like the number 1. And it just seemed like last night, he was just like, screw it. I'm going to be better than Morant. I mean, you heard that he told Morant that he needed to like get home and put Deuce to bed. Now that might actually be true. I feel like Deuce runs that relationship, but I don't know. But it just feels like Tatum is kind of taking that step, becoming like a man in the NBA, if you will, or just like, it just feels like he understands that he's a superstar.
He's definitely seems to have matured, which was always our biggest question about him. Brogdon has been our number 2, and that's why that was such a good pickup. Also, quick aside, also wasn't on the rundown. Enough. I don't care that I'm old man yelling at clouds. These kids at press conferences, cut it. I don't need to see Steph Curry's kid. I don't need to see Deuce. I don't need to see Draymond's 2 kids. I don't know when this started. Not a fan. Don't need it.
I'm not a fan of this either. I think it's so dumb. Like at any workplace, you don't just like bring your kids to disrupt a meeting. You know what I mean? Like it's just, I feel like this is the only time that these fathers see their kids, too. It's
that
like,
may be, but as a consumer who thinks money, get your kid off my screen.
I totally agree. I've always thought the Deuce thing was annoying. Like, especially if you're one of the other players, you're like, dude, can you like focus on Tatum's amazing. So how much can anyone say to him? But thank God he's that good because it would be insufferable. Imagine if that was Grant Williams holding around his kid like that.
I got to be honest. I think Grant Williams is going to get a bucket full of money, and it better not be from us.
He's going to get a lot of money.
That guy is not good.
He's the type of guy that the Knicks will pay like $100 million for or something.
I don't get him, bro. I just don't get him. And I understand his 3-point numbers look better this year. But again, that is not a 3-point shooter. I don't care. I don't care that you're having him do it and that his numbers are good. Much like Joe Ingles, who can score 20 a game, when you get into the playoffs and people are like, hey, let's actually guard this idiot, his numbers are going to dramatically go down because he's not a get his own shot. No, I'm sorry.
No, I agree. He's definitely relies on like being open, and
he's Jared Sullinger. I don't remember people being super excited for Jared Sullinger.
Hey, Jared Sullinger was better than him.
No, he wasn't. Not in the NBA. In college, sure. In the NBA, no, he fucking wasn't. Sullinger was bad. Also, Sullinger and Okafor, they would average 18 points a game in this league. There's just no centers anymore. I just like, if you have a back to the basket game and you're big, you should just drop 40 every night. The fact that Giannis dribbles is upsetting. That guy should take 2 dribbles from a back down, drop step, and dunk it on people's foreheads. There's no big men.
Oh, God. He disagrees with Grant. Oh, no.
Of course he would. Listen, Josh is the type of coach who, listen, I got Timmy. He's not very good at shooting or dribbling or passing, but we need 10 Jimmys on this team. No. You need a LeBron. Like, I get it, and he's a great player, and that's cool, but he's spectacular at nothing. And he's not a great defender. I understand he's done a very good job, but when you're that undersized and you're not even young, how long do you think he's going to be able to play defense above his skis?
Yeah. I mean, the Bucks, they're just going nuts again, 9-1, Giannis is playing incredible. I mean, we're going to talk about Luka in a second, but, it just feels like Jrue Holiday is really hot this year too. And it just feels like the Bucks are just poised to make a decent run.
Look, the most underrated player, I think, in the league has been Brook Lopez every year that he's been in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy, speaking of, that guy was a back-to-the-basket Nets with 20 and 10 guy. And all of a sudden, he plays defense. Never did that when he was younger. That doesn't make any sense. Shooting threes. Couldn't shoot from 12 feet when he got drafted. That doesn't make any sense. And he's egoless. He's humble. The guy takes discounts. He's perfect for that team. And because he can shoot, he allows Giannis to basically play de facto center on the offensive side. I mean, he is the most underrated, the most complimentary piece in the NBA right now.
That's a good point. They're also doing all of this without
Middleton.
Middleton
doesn't really help them in the regular season. Middleton's the weirdest NBA player in a long time because he doesn't have, like, you think, the ability to get his own shot, but he just takes step backs with 16 seconds left that hit nothing but net. He's a very clutch, mediocre, overrated, but definitely important to that team player.
He's definitely a good shooter. Yeah.
He hits he makes tough shots, and he's willing to take them. And that's something that Giannis cannot do yet. So he's been, again, they did a very good job building around Giannis.
They really have. They've surrounded him with all the pieces he needs to play his game. It's basically like he gets the boards and then has these incredible guys around. And then, guys like Brook Lopez, who, used to have a back-to-the-basket game and now are firing bombs away on threes. I mean, I never thought you'd see Brook Lopez. You used to laugh when that guy would huck threes.
And now he's a better shot blocker in his old age than he was when he was younger.
I know.
And that's a product of the league getting a little bit shorter, and he's still 7 feet tall, so, like, it makes sense. But his spatial awareness, his ability to come over earlier and play help defense is just so much better than at any other point. Lopez been playing well for that team. But we got a couple minutes left. You ready to hit, like, the main NBA talking point?
Luka,
mother flipping Doncic, putting himself on some. Andre Drummond shouldn't shoot. Andre Drummond shouldn't dribble. Andre Drummond shouldn't be in the league. But Luka is putting up Wilt numbers. And I always love when somebody goes on a scoring tear because you're reminded how much unfair and just better Wilt was. Like, nobody's done this in the last 30 years. But the last 10 times it was done, they were all Wilt Chamberlain, back to back to back to back. It's amazing. It's amazing. He started with 7 straight 30-point games. Nobody's done that in years. But Wilt once started with 26 straight games. Like, what is going on? That guy is so unfair. But I don't want to take everything away from Luka in this segment. I do always find scoring lists to be funny because it's Wilt and everybody else. But Luka this year, he's averaging 36, 8, and 8 His team is well over 500. They're playing good defense. And here's my fear for that team. They actually need this from him. The Mavericks have done an average job of building around him. But he needs people around him. He's way too cocky. He's got no veteran leadership. I think that team would benefit dramatically from an Al Horford, from a Grant Williams, from just a veteran leadership guy who doesn't need the ball. Because I think Luka's going to go crazy a little bit. I mean, his numbers might get better, but I've seen players when they're emboldened to play the wrong way have it affect them poorly for a long time. I always bring up Brady. When that team was Brady-centric, he got used to Welker and Moss being open. So for a couple years, it wasn't the open guy. It was give me my stars. And it took a while to adjust. NBA players, Harden, took him a while to adjust his game. It's very difficult to get somebody to be complimentary. Either you are or you're not schematically. Luka needs other players. He needs shooters around him. But he's playing himself right now.
I feel like you just need to do a better job. I mean, you said he might benefit from somebody like Horford. I mean, let's start with getting him some decent talent in there. I just feel like, I mean, Spencer Dinwiddie is a nice player, but if your second best player, like is Dinwiddie, I mean, I don't think you're a championship team.
No, but they're also not recruiting in free agency. It's going to be very difficult for them to draft somebody. They're not going to have a good enough pick. They're at a point where it's trade or free agency.
That's why I wanted to see Durant. I wanted to see Durant go there. I wanted to see what that would be like, those two.
Not as fun as you'd think. Honestly, I think Kyrie is more complimentary to Doncic than Durant. And I understand that Durant's game is complimentary to everything. Doesn't need the ball. Won 12 shots, can put up 35. Unicorn. I got it. But Luka does need the ball. And I think he would benefit more from like a Beal. I think he would benefit more from a legit shooter who's willing to take the ball from him. You cannot use Luka this much. I don't care how good anybody is. The man's usage rate is through the roof. It's like Jordan-esque. It's Derrick Rose-esque. It's like you can't use a guy this much and expect him not to get hurt. Luka's also not the most physically dominant athlete. You should not be using every single possession for him.
Luka's per is 38 this year. It's just like absolutely ridiculous. I mean,
yeah, he's wild.
Yeah.
He's wild. And it's very exciting. And we're going to see, because he realistically, another month of this, and he can coast the rest of the year and win MVP.
I agree. Well, hey, we appreciate you tuning in and coasting with us. That's going to do it for us on Open Season. For Frank Bradica, I'm Billy Allen. We'll catch you next week.